believe me, we're all invited to take another terrifying journey into the world of mystery, suspense, and terror. Let's turn on all the lights, lock the doors and windows, sit back and enjoy this evening's chilling tale.
All right, well, thank you, Shroud, and thank you, folks at home, or whatever it is that you may be, for tuning that dial to the Eek channel. My name is James, and today I am joined by my co-host,
Cody.
If you're new to the show, we're going to take the first half, and we're going to talk about a horror-related topic, and then after that, we're going to take a break in the middle, we're going to go watch a movie, and then we're going to come back to you with our immediate hot takes and review to determine if the movie gets the official Eek seal of quality. So this is episode 20 of the Eatcast, and today we are discussing cult horror.
Okay, just pause real quick. Episode 20, let's go.
Episode 20.
That's really exciting.
So, I mean, you know, the way this whole thing kind of started is that 3 years ago, you and I and a couple of our other friends, really how it happened was all of our wives or significant others were getting together to watch The Bachelor every Monday.
Yep.
Or The Bachelorette.
Depends on the
Whichever
season.
one. Yep. And we were like, well, if they're all doing something, then I guess we should do something because we're all sitting at home twiddling our thumbs.
Yep. Drinking beer by ourselves. We could be drinking beer together. Watching movies, daggone it.
Daggone it. So that's what we did. We started getting together every Monday, watching horror movies, scary movies, whatever. And somewhere along the line, we kept saying, we could make this into a podcast. We could like do something with this. It'd be kind of cool. And I mean, you know, maybe people will listen, maybe not, but it'll be fun, right? And
Absolutely.
we never did it. We never did it. The catalyst is I lost my job. And I was like, well, now I actually have time to figure out how to do this thing. And so I've since gotten another job, so everything's fine. Don't worry about me. But
quarter life crisis. Let's make a podcast.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah.
And so that's what we've been doing. We've done it for 20 weeks in a row.
Unbelievable.
We haven't missed a week. We've been very consistent.
Love it.
This is the first week where for the pre-show, there's only two of us. Typically, we have three at the table, but we're making it work.
The good thing is we probably talk the most out of whoever the other co-host normally is. So we just got to talk more. What you're telling me is just keep talking. So first, I just want to kind of run into this kind of head on. Cult movies, again, to clarify, not cult classics.
Right.
These are movies about cults.
Yep.
And probably one of my favorite topics, which I know we're kind of doing back to back, like puzzle horror, what we called puzzle horror. And I love puzzle horror. And then, I love cult movies about cults. But it's true. Like anytime we come across a title, and I would say it's probably true for all of it. Like it's probably one of those subgenres that we all agree on because it's fascinating. So I guess like what triggered you to be like, this is what we're discussing, and by the way, let's unearth, and probably not so accidentally, probably some of our favorite movies we've watched together.
I know. So really, I have I sit down every Sunday night and I have a spreadsheet of all the different episode ideas that I've kicked around on my noggin at different times. And depending on who's available for each week, I'll pluck one from that. And then I'm also, every Sunday night, whenever I revisit the list, I'm also brainstorming new ones and throwing those on there.
Sure.
And so I just kind of have a constant pool of ideas. And we did the puzzle horror last week, and then I was going through the list, and honestly, like, these are all ideas that I've had, so I can't be mad at anyone but myself. Yeah. But I'm looking at them, and I'm like, I hate all of these ideas. I don't want to watch any of these movies. I don't want to talk about any of this stuff. And then I saw cult horror, and I was like, you know what? Let's give that a shot. And I started reminiscing about all of these movies. A lot of them we've seen together, and they're so good. And there's, just like the puzzle horror, cult horror doesn't really have its own subgenre.
It doesn't.
For the most part. Like, you have your slashers, you have your zombie movies, you have your creature features, vampires kind of get their own thing going on. Your home invasion is talked about a lot as its own thing, but cults aren't.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's because they mix and match their psychological thrillers or whatever, and like
Definitely.
and then other times they're satanic in nature, which kind of adds its own thing. But they're not all cults are satanic cults, and not all cult movies are satanic cult movies. So yeah, that's kind of just what got me onto it. And then as I was going through so many of these movies that I really, really like, so I wanted to first of all kind of create a split. I feel like within cult horror, there are two big variables.
Okay, hit me.
And they are exploring the cult. So usually it's like an outsider coming in who is kind of examining it or potentially going to join or something like that. And so that's where we have movies like The Endless, The Sacrament, and The Invitation. Yeah. And then there's also where cults are like the enemy, which means that sometimes you don't even know that the cult exists until the end. Yeah. And so that brings us to something like The Void, where we see the cultists with like their robes and the mask, but we don't really know what they are until the end of the movie, when it's like, oh, this is like a cult thing. They're not just like a bunch of psychos wearing masks slashing people. Yeah. And then we also have that in movies such as House of the Devil, where at first are these people just weird, then no, it's like a satanic cult thing. And then you have Red State, where the cult is the enemy the entire movie. And then Hereditary, we don't really know the cult exists till the end.
Yeah, exactly. Which I kind of forgot. So like, it's one of those things where like, when I started down my, actually, okay, let me back up just a second. We had dinner together last night. Yep. And I had gotten the text of what the topic was going to be, I think, by that point. Maybe not. I can't remember. Oh, yeah, I asked you. I said, is there anything I should research? And then I backed up and I said, actually, I've tried to stop making lists because I realize when I make lists, I just talk endlessly. Yeah. And like to the point where like I feel like I got to get my list in. So I said, I'm not going to make a list. I'm just going to go live. And then like my brain just started auto-producing all of these titles or thoughts. Like they weren't even titles. I had to go look up the titles because it was just like, oh, we watched that one movie about those guys who would like get stuck in these weird time loops. And like, what was that movie? And it wasn't that great, but it was good enough that I would want to mention it in this episode. Like, if this is your thing, yes, you need to go see that, which, by the way, the title is Endless, which we've mentioned. And so it's like, it just got me so pumped. So fortunately, a lot of my titles that I had we're going to work through or we've already mentioned, but there's a couple still that like, I think it's vague enough where like, if it starts out even as like semi-religious and then turns like one that isn't quite, it's not quite cult, but it has like almost cult, like cultish extreme properties, I guess, would be The Witch. Yeah. Like it has elements, like enough of those elements where it's not like The Exorcist, where it's like, oh, we've seen the Catholic practice of this several times, depicted several times. Right. Like this weird new, like colonial Puritan, like too far. Like we watch it and you just, it's kind of like that old saying, like, I think this was a big saying in the 80s, maybe. I don't know. My mom used it a lot growing up. Like, I can't define pornography, but I know when I see it. And that's why we boycotted Kmart, because she saw it every time we went Kmart, I guess. I don't know. Can't tell you why we boycotted Kmart. But anyway, so it's kind of like that, where you just know, like, this has gone too far. This isn't a religious depiction. This is oppressive. And then I just, so I had to come up with a little list because I had to get my honorable mentions. And if I can just jump right in.
Yeah, go for it, man.
Number 1 on this list. Absolutely. And maybe we've talked about it before. Maybe it's the product of where we were. Maybe it's the product of seeing it together. Maybe it's a product of having no idea what this movie was about. But it's The Void. Yep. Oh my gosh. Yep. Unbelievable. absolutely blown away. And you have the idea of cult properties, but then you also have like some weird like monster properties, and you have like it's hard to describe, and I don't want to spoil. Like, if you haven't seen this, my goodness, please go watch it. I don't want to spoil like too much, but there are definitely. I mean, you get the cult sense pretty quick.
Yeah,
you get kind of the KKK robes, hoods, and unbelievable.
What I just find amazing about The Void, it's gonna be hard to have so much conversation about this movie and then not be reviewing it. But what I find amazing about it is that it takes little snapshots. It's not an anthology at all, but it takes these little snapshots of different scenes and different settings. And at times this is a cult movie. At times this is a creature feature. At times this is a Lovecraftian film.
Definitely.
And at times this is very similar to like a Walking Dead, Dawn of the Dead, claustrophobic survival movie.
Yeah. But you know, like I almost said it's almost like a haunted house, because they go through these phases, and at one point you're like, they have the thought of like, we might have to go back through that.
At one point they're literally walking through a haunted house, more or less.
but it does it so well that it doesn't feel, like you said, it's not an anthology, and it really doesn't even feel like it, but it's just like one test and task after the other.
Yeah, it has just all these elements of every subgenre that I love, and then somehow wraps it up in a cohesive enough package that I really like it. So a lot of people don't like The Void.
Unbelievable. I am not friends with those people. Period.
Yeah, and you know, so I always go back to, well, you know, maybe it was just partially a product of how we saw it. We saw that movie at midnight at a tiny little art house cinema downtown, and it was a very not packed theater.
Yeah.
So like 12 other weirdos who want to see this independent horror movie at midnight like we do. Like,
yep.
And we had a great time. Because I had actually, so I bought this VHS copy of The Void. Obviously, it's a bootleg because they never released this on VHS, but you know, whatever. And the person that I bought it from was like, I said, oh, you have The Void. I need it. And he goes, well, you know, it's obviously a bootleg. And I'm like, yeah, that's fine. I don't care. Like,
yeah,
that's, at this point, it's one of my favorite movies.
It's a must.
And
it's a must.
He was like, oh, I didn't really like it.
Dude can go kick rocks.
And I was just like, oh, well, you know, the way I saw it, and it was just in the setting, and like, didn't know what we were getting to. It was special, and we experienced it, and it was so good. And he was like, oh yeah, I had to find a way to get it bootleg because he lives in Canada, and it didn't get released streaming in Canada, and didn't really get like a wide release at all. So he just had to like go buy it somewhere and watch it at home by himself.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't. Yeah, maybe we chalk this one up to I still love Creed Human Clay, like bad CD product of its time. Like maybe, I don't know, but I'm too far into it to see myself out. Like
it's true, yes. And I just love the art direction in The Void. Like I want to get like a big poster and put it on one of these walls in here in the little studio, because yeah, it's really one of my favorite horror movies at this point.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's talk about a couple other movies, even though I don't want to. I guess another thing that kind of sparked this idea was obviously there are some cult themes in Hereditary, particularly towards the end, and Ari Aster's new movie comes out in just 2 weeks, first week of June. Midsommar.
I read it Somar, but
it's definitely spelled Midsommar, but I feel like I'm being really pretentious when I pronounce it that way.
I think you have to pronounce it how I pronounce it in my head, though, which is like with this weird little accent where you say Midsommar. It's like in I Love You Man, he says chocolate. It's like, dude, it's chocolate. Okay, we get it. So I think that's what
Yeah, but that looks really culty, and actually has a similar look to the film that we're going to watch tonight. So that's been fresh on my mind as well. So what are some other things you had on your list there?
Yeah, let me ask you your preference. You want me to hit the titles and then we'll go pick and choose, or you want to hit it and try to stay on it for a second?
Let's just go, and if I feel the need to stop you, I will.
Okay, so first is The Ritual. I'll give you.
Yep.
I'll give you my 15-second spiel. It's another must see. It was on Netflix for a long time. Cannot verify that it's still on Netflix when and wherever you may be listening to this. It is mid-May 2019. If you're listening to this in a year, no guarantees it's on Netflix. If you're listening to this now, it may not be on Netflix.
I think they have exclusive distributing for it. It's not necessarily original, but they bought that, so it should be on there for a while at least.
Incredible. It's an incredible film. Again, like, it's one of those films where it takes a while for the cult thing to brew, but when it hits, oh my, it hits like a freight train.
Oh, then there's particularly a scene that happens kind of at a midway point through the movie, and it's in a cabin where these guys are lost in the woods, and that's kind of part of the beginning of the scary part of the movie just because they're lost. But then they find this cabin that they spend the night in, and that's kind of the climax and really the turning point of the film. And that scene alone, my God.
Worth it.
So
worth whatever is it, hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever time you're spending on it, that one scene alone, you'll know it when it hits.
Oh, yeah.
You'll know it. And then from then on, the roller coaster is wild.
After that scene, I just felt dirty.
Yep. Oh, absolutely. I'm too far. I need to get out and I need to go take a shower. I'm gonna hit you with two real quick because it's the same director. The first one is House of the Devil, and then the second is The Sacrament.
Yep.
So correct me if I'm wrong. Ty West,
I believe, is how it is officially pronounced.
Okay, it's
not T West, but Ty West.
Could be either. I don't care. He makes some really good movies.
Yeah, he's kind of been in a weird place lately. So he made House of the Devil, The Innkeepers, The Sacrament. Oh, You're Next was in there as well, which was a great home invasion flick. And they're all really, really, really good. And then he made a couple entries into the VHS anthology movies, I believe, maybe even ABCs of Death as well. And then he kind of tapered off the genre for a while, and like I guess he's gotten a little upset in interviews and like Twitter and stuff about like being pigeonholed as a horror director, and so he went and made a Western, which I didn't watch because I wanted to make another horror movie because they're really good.
Yeah. Hey man, I'm not gonna stop you from trying to change and explore your own creative outlets. Just know that when you make another horror movie, I'm here, and I'm going to be really excited for it.
I'm here, I'm going to buy it, and I'm probably going to like it.
Because he does horror really, really well.
He does it really well. So on Shudder, they have brought back Joe Bob Briggs on a weekly show now.
Okay.
And so every Friday, a new like episode of the show airs, and they do a double feature, and he hosts the whole thing and cuts in between moments to talk about the movie and stuff. And I think it was just last week's or maybe the week before they did House of the Devil, and just getting some of Joe Bob's commentary during House of the Devil. Obviously, he's got his feet much deeper in the trenches of the industry and just knows a lot of those like behind the scenes stuff that like you probably won't even find on IMDb or whatever. And it was really cool. It's definitely a great way to experience the movie.
And I think specifically for House of the Devil, Ty West kind of did this thing, and James, you kind of filled us in on this, so if I get any of the details wrong, please correct me, but he kind of like worked through the decades.
Yeah, and I don't even know that he meant to. I imagine that he did, but he hasn't ever come out and like say, hey, this was my big plan.
Okay.
But like, so House of the Devil came out and it's very late 70s feeling.
Oh, and like the fact, like if you look up the release date and then you see the production, it is incredible.
Yeah.
It is, I mean, not shot for shot. Like, that's not what I'm saying, but like just cinematography, the emotion, everything about it is Last House on the Left. Obviously without kind of that rape horror, that sexual horror thing, but like just the
very early Wes Craven.
Yeah, just that early, all the props, the way it's shot, the yellowish kind of grain and lettering, like everything about it is just that alone is really, really intriguing. but then you get a great story on top of it.
Oh, absolutely. And then after that, we got Innkeepers, which feels like similar to The Ring or some other like kind of mid to late 90s ghost story movies that were really popular. And then after The Innkeepers is whenever he did Your Next, which is very that kind of mid 2000s The Strangers type home invasion movie, The Strangers Panic Room, which he does that genre really well as well. And then he does a found footage movie with The Sacrament, which is the cult movie that we're here to talk about.
So good.
And yeah, it's freaking great. Okay, what else you got?
So I have one left on my list, again, because I knew we would kind of be prompted with some. And I'm not sure, it's been a minute since I've seen this movie. It was disturbing enough where I don't plan on seeing it again, but I think it had some kind of society or cult kind of thing to it. It may not have been like a religious thing, but we'll say lowercase c cult, Raw.
I was gonna bring that up.
Yeah.
So on any cult list, it's never listed. But and maybe it's not so much cult as it is almost more like a vampire type movie.
Sure.
Because we find out that it's like a hereditary thing.
Yeah, that's true.
At the end, like so the general, broad kind of pitch for Raw is it's a cannibalism movie that's set on this college campus. But we find out that the girl who we've been following this whole time, who's having these weird cannibalistic urges, all of a sudden her sister also has them. Her mother also had them.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, you could kind of create a cult from that. Like, if that's the case, then her mother, I don't know if it's just a women thing, but like maybe not, maybe so. Like her family, like for generations, have probably been some form of cannibal.
Yeah. And I think like wasn't there was something, maybe I'm getting some of my scenes right. Again, I've only seen it once, but yeah, there were other that like for a lot of the movie. I remember the big sister reveal at the end, which is kind of a big twist. Sorry about that. But I thought that there was even a couple more where she maybe thought that she saw something, or we get scenery where like maybe others are doing it too. But
yeah, well, it's just that like whole hazing ritual at the beginning of the movie.
That's right.
And so if you watch the trailer, it feels like more of a cult thing than it actually ends up being when you watch the narrative of the movie.
That's right.
Because they get all of like the freshmen out in the middle of the night and they make them wear like all the same like white poncho, and they make them all eat, it's like a rabbit testicle or something, I don't know, rabbit liver, I don't remember, but like it's like a hazing thing, and it's all like in jest, but like that is kind of what triggers her down this path, because she had been vegan, vegetarian,
that's right,
up until that point.
Yep.
Because her mother made her have that type of diet so it wouldn't awaken this hunger.
Yeah. So maybe, if you haven't seen Raw, definitely watch it. Maybe this is a very outlier, like I said, lowercase c cult kind of thing, but worth a watch.
Yeah, find a place where you can watch it with subtitles. And give it a watch.
Yeah, we've had people get a hold of us and say, "Hey, this was on your top 5 of all time."
The whole thing's in French and there's no English subtitles.
It was horrible. We didn't understand it. Make sure that whatever you're watching this on, make sure that there are subtitles, because that you're going to be really confused. Not worth your time if you don't understand what they're saying.
Yeah. All right.
That's my list. I knew we'd be prompted. We got a couple more that are on here that I feel like maybe we want to mention just real quick. Mm-hmm. One, maybe you mentioned it earlier, but The Path.
Oh shoot! No, we haven't talked about that at all.
Okay,
we need to talk about that.
I think that deserves a mention. So for those unaware, I believe this is a Hulu original.
Yep.
So it would be, if you haven't spent your Hulu 30-day free trial, spend it and binge The Path. 5 seasons, 6 seasons.
No.
7. No, because they stopped. Those dirty.
We only got 2.
No, 3. There's more than that. There's 3 or 4, but not as many as I was hoping for.
No.
And really not as many as kind of they promised. Promised, but
led on. It got cut short. They didn't expect it to get canceled.
Yeah.
They really didn't. You can tell.
Their reaction via social media, Twitter, made it seem as though none of them knew that they weren't going to be coming back. But essentially, we got Aaron Paul, who is kind of our main star of the show. And it is it's not a movie. I'm sorry. It is a television show specifically diving into a cult, like a 21st century commune.
It's like cult. It was started in the 70s whenever everybody was starting cults, and in the free sex and free love movement and all of that, but it's maintained a following until current day. And kind of the first season really centers around Aaron Paul as a guy who came into the commune just sort of broken. He was an addict and had a lot of kind of issues, father issues, and
classic.
Kind of bought into this whole system, and like life seems great now. He met his wife in the cult. They have 2 kids. Like, he has this whole new family. His in-laws are amazing. Like, they're all so close and together. And then he goes on this retreat to South America, which is what you do when you're in one of these weird cults.
That's what you do.
And
don't drink the Kool-Aid.
You have a little something that they give you to open your mind, and he has this experience of kind of questioning his faith in this belief system for the first time. And the whole first season kind of deals with that and the effect that has on his family. His wife, who he had met, was born into this cult, so like she's not getting taken away from it anytime soon. Like, and that's huge. And then the next season is you just see it open up a little bit more to them taking this 70s, free love, peyote is okay, don't throw a fit about it. And like, okay, now how do we change the marketing message of this to millennials?
Yep.
And like, for me, that's where the show really takes off.
Yeah. And you still like, so it delves enough. For those who don't know, James and I both worked together.
Yeah.
For a church, and so it would air, and we would come into the office and have conversations about like,
oh man,
just make sure, hey, gut check, we're not doing this, right?
There would be things that happen within the cult that were just close enough to something that would happen at the non-denominational evangelical church that we worked at. That were like, oh,
maybe we need to.
That comes off a little culty.
Yeah. And like, and for us, we saw it as kind of a good litmus test. Like, if we thought it was like maybe not couth on television, like, hey, maybe we need to be careful about practice. So we would utilize it on a practical level. But I think we can all empathize with that to some degree.
Absolutely.
We have social mores. We have, religious or personal affiliations. Just even life practices that get changed and morphed and challenged throughout life. That it's our job to kind of wrestle with those. And sometimes it feels like they win. Sometimes it feels like we're able to beat whatever these thoughts are, with either truth or with our just own willpower,
right?
and we can convince ourselves otherwise. And so it just deals with, not only is the storyboarding fantastic for this kind of primetime drama.
Oh, but it's so cinematic for a show. Like you kept almost saying movie. It's because so many times it feels like
and especially if you binge it, it feels like a movie,
long ass movie.
Yeah, but it also deals with these kind of quasi social issues that so many of us,
especially in like the later seasons.
Yeah. And it goes through how people deal with them differently. And so even in big life changes that I've dealt with other people, I'm reacting one way, they're reacting another, and we both look at each other like, hey, why are you doing that? And like, well, duh, because we learned this, and then we challenge each other again. So it's just, it's a great social commentary. It's a great cult feature. It's and erase all that. If none of that captures your interest, it's just a really good show. I mean,
really good.
I mean, if you're into
characters that you will identify with,
Yeah.
characters that you will hate so passionately,
Yeah.
so quickly.
Yep. Character development is key and on point. All whatever, how many few seasons we get. And then I feel like the last one we have to mention, just because kind of going into our feature, is Rosemary's Baby.
Yeah.
We can't do this segment. There's a couple times where it's like, hey, we're not going to spend time on this because you've probably seen it. It's considered a classic, and we certainly don't want to get stuck on something that everybody here has probably seen. If you haven't seen it, you have to go watch it because it is a classic.
Yep.
But it deals with this as well. I mean, this is a quintessential cult film.
Yep.
So
Yep.
that's all I got to say about that.
And that brings us into...
And now for our feature presentation.
which some might say is the essential cult film. So this is actually a movie that neither of us have seen. We are going to be watching the 1973 Wicker Man.
Woo! I think, was there, sorry, to be clear, was there a remake?
There was a remake. I forget the year. I want to say 2003-ish.
Yeah.
With Nicolas Cage.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing the trailer for that movie as a child,
yeah.
and that looks cool. And I remember renting that from the video store and it being really bad.
Yeah.
And I had no idea the history of this film. I had no idea of the 73 version. And then as I was actually doing research for our 1970s decade episode, which we did earlier, I found out that the 1973 Wicker Man is kind of critically acclaimed as the best 70s movie, or at least one of the best 70s movies. So Cody, do you want to just read for me the feature description before you get to the back of the box?
Yes, absolutely. The Wicker Man is a 1973 British mystery horror film directed by Robin Hardy and starring Edward Woodward and Christopher Lee. Ooh, Christopher Lee. Ooh. The screenplay is by Anthony Schaefer and was inspired by David Penner's 1967 novel Ritual.
All right, can you go ahead and take us into the back of the box?
Absolutely. When a young girl mysteriously disappears, Police Sergeant Neil Howie travels to a remote Scottish island to investigate. But the seemingly quiet community is not all that it appears, as the detective uncovers a secretive pagan society led by the strange lord Summeralsey, while the townsfolk tempt and threaten him with bizarre rituals.
Summerisle.
Thank you. And wanton lust. Neil must race to discover the truth behind the girl's disappearance before the clash with the Lord Summerisle builds to a terrifying conclusion.
All right, so there you go. We will get back to you in just a few minutes with our thoughts on The Wicker Man. And also, we did a little contest today on our social media, and we'll also get back to you a little bit later with the results of said contest.
Let's go.
All right, to The Wicker Man.
To the Wicker Man!
All right, and we are back.
And we're back!
Coming at you with our thoughts on The Wicker Man. So let me start off with some little trivia here. I wanted to hold the budget numbers until after the movie this time. Definitely. And I might do that in the future. I think I like it better this way, to talk about the budget after we've watched the movie rather than beforehand. So the estimated budget for this movie is $650,000 in 1973. And then its worldwide gross is $60,000.
Oof.
But there's kind of a long story that might put a little bit of that into perspective. So we'll get to that in a minute. But running through the trivia here. So Christopher Lee agreed to appear in this movie pro bono, completely for free. And he considers it his greatest role he's ever played.
Shocking.
Is that a quote to date?
As far as I know.
Question.
As far as I know.
Yeah.
Or that's like his second gig, and he was like, "Yeah, this is the greatest thing I've ever done."
No, I think that was a fairly recent quote. He has actually shown repeated love for this film, whereas even the director of the movie, we had that. Where was that? Robin Hardy has kind of like backpedaled and like, oh yeah, that was a crappy movie. And like Christopher Lee's like, no, he's wrong. That movie is amazing.
Wow.
Yeah. He really believes in it.
I know Christopher Lee is a super complex dude, and I could get some of my, like, you could definitely get on Google after you hear me say any of this, because it could be wrong. I could be confused with a couple different people, because he often is lumped in with in
The Zodiac Killer.
McKellen. No, just some of these old British actors who, like, some of the facts get confused, and I certainly don't want to make this like super like Captain America-esque singular British actor, which is not what I want to do. But I think I got all the facts correct with him, where he was in World War II, right? He's like a war hero, right? Like Nazi,
I think so, yeah.
Nazi killer extreme, and I believe he's also like a writer. I believe he is a poet. And so he's just the super complex dude where, like, maybe... I guess what I'm trying to say is you saying this doesn't shock me.
Well,
But
obviously I was a little influenced by already knowing the trivia. But he is sold out to this role as Lord Summerisle, the leader of this cult. I mean, sold out to it.
All in.
I mean, when he's acting crazy... It's believable crazy.
Yeah.
It's intense.
It's probably because he actually has his own cult in the Summer Isles.
He might.
This is just an orientation video.
Yes.
Look it up.
So my next bit of trivia is
Google it.
Willow's dance scene.
Bing it.
Which, if you've seen this movie, I'm sure you know what the one we're talking about. It comes fairly early in the movie.
It's really only one.
And it took 13 hours to shoot, and she is butt naked the whole time.
Yep.
And not necessarily in a sexy way.
No.
In a kind of an awkward way.
It's like an Irish erotic haka.
Please explain.
I mean, you watched the movie. I don't understand why you need to explain.
Not what I wanted to
Could
do.
you just elaborate on what a haka is?
Oh, yeah, you know the New Zealand sort of people do the whole, like...
Okay.
If you're not watching live, you just missed gold. Yes. Okay.
It's the rugby team, the Black Diamonds. Am I close?
Black Leafs.
Yeah.
I think it's the Black Leafs.
Okay.
But,
Sports.
yeah, I've been...
Anyway, it's intense, and I can't... I don't know, like... And you kind of feel sorry for this actress, because she's obviously trying to sell out to this dance as well. And, like, there's a part of me that's like... Did it need to take 13 hours to film?
Did it need to take 20 minutes to film?
Like, you
Did
know...
it need to take up 4 whole minutes of the movie?
It's just, you know, just kind of like... Did you ask her to do it again just because you're
naked.
a male director and she's a naked young actress and you know that you could get away with it? Like,
Yep.
It feels that way.
Yep.
I'm not sure that sequence needed to take that long to make.
I'm not sure that it really needed to be involved in the movie.
Well, let's get into that. So the movie was cut from its original 99 minutes to 87 minutes in the UK, and it basically...
Cody's currently choking on his beer, thinking about the 5 minutes of uncut, unreleased.
Well, we got more the brunt of the true story. So we didn't see how it was released in theaters in the UK in 1973. We didn't see that version. We saw the new, more uncut version. The original version, if you will. But they basically sent it in. They asked him to cut it down to 87 minutes. He cut it down to 87 minutes. He felt... And when he cut it down to 87 minutes, took some of the more overt, kind of weird culty sexual stuff out of it. Some of the fertility stuff was removed for the 87-minute cut. And he also thought that some of the plot points they rearranged, and it just didn't quite make as much sense. But that's why it was released in 1973 to some pretty abysmal numbers, obviously. Worldwide gross of 60,000. I mean, it barely made not even quite a tenth of what they spent on the movie. But it was a B movie, and it was a B movie in the traditional sense, not in just like, hey, this didn't cost a lot of money. So like, especially in UK cinemas, they would do a lot of double features. We got a little bit of that in the US, but mostly with like drive-ins is really where we experienced that. But the B movie would always be the second movie, and it's usually the one that it's not the top of the bill. It's not the one that people are actually paying for. It's just like, oh, it's kind of like the B side of a record. Like,
it's the opener band.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what this movie was. It played after a more successful kind of mainstream film, and then this played after. And so I think that's kind of what affected the numbers on it a little bit. But also, a few years later, so they kind of put this movie out, and it was kind of a done deal, and, the director, Hardy, wasn't very happy with it. But, what's done is done. And then it was like 7 years later, or I guess 6 years later, Hardy kind of revisited the film, and he's like, hey, I want to re-release it. The original studio had gotten bought by a bigger company, and so like he was kind of making an appeal, basically just to get the rights to his movie back. Mm-hmm. And they pretty much said, yeah, sure, that's fine, but we don't have the negatives.
Oof.
And the rumor that like the UK cinema rumor is that a lot of the materials that were in that warehouse were then turned into like construction material, just like melted down. And so apparently like the rumor is the original negatives for this movie, as well as a bunch of other UK movies, is part of what was used to build like a major highway in Britain.
Yikes.
Yeah, it's pretty weird. If there's any truth to it at all, it's pretty weird.
Right.
But Roger Corman, who we talked about in our, I believe it was our 50s episode, maybe our 60s episode. So Roger Corman, if you remember, he was the guy in the U.S. who was making movies that all starred Vincent Price.
Oh, yeah.
And their whole thing was basically to do the exact opposite of what Alfred Hitchcock was doing, where Alfred Hitchcock was doing these like really big budget, as close as we can get to like a Hollywood production horror film, and these guys were like, no, let's spend no money and we'll make twice as much, and then our profit margins are huge. And out of that we got some amazing Vincent Price movies. So they had sent Roger Corman a copy of the original film in 73, because he was supposed to go through it and make a cut specifically tailored to U.S. audiences. I guess it kind of went to WB and it never really got released or whatever. It just didn't really work out. But Roger Corman still had the copy of the film, and he didn't make actual physical cuts to it and like move it around. So he had the original uncut version of the film in the U.S. that they had sent him. And so Hardy was able to get that back and then, re-release it in 1979. And that's whenever it actually got released.
Wow.
And it's the way that we saw it today, the way that it was meant to be seen, was, 6 years after it was made and released, it got re-released as the real version.
That's pretty cool. I like that story.
Crazy story.
I think it's a cool story.
Crazy story. Like, there's very, very particular events had to occur for this movie to ever even, get resurfaced. And if the negatives were gone, I mean, that means we're probably not getting a home video release. We're probably not seeing it digitally remastered, because what are they remastering it from if the negatives are destroyed? But the fact that Robert Corman had his own copy of the negative, like, they were able to keep the film around. So it's really cool. Just a really cool archive story, I think.
Definitely. And I feel like I don't know, you get so much like Hollywood lore that like, some of it's like, okay, maybe that was built, or used to build a highway, but like we don't know.
Right.
But this is something that we can kind of track and say like, no, these strange coincidences lead us to have what seems to be a classic.
Yeah.
I don't know. Neat.
Pretty
neat
cool.
story. Yeah.
Pretty cool. Okay, so let's move on. What happened in The Wicker Man?
Policeman showed up. He was like, "Yo, where's this girl at?" And they're like, "We don't know." And then he walks around, and there's like tons of documentation because they're apparently seemingly really bad at hiding and covering it up.
Maybe.
Yeah. And then there's this whole Mayday thing, and then someone messes with his little plane thing, and then all of a sudden he comes back, knocks this dude out in the hump, steals his full thing. Then he comes in, superhero, saves the day, saves the girl, and then they're like, "Psych, we totally played you, and now we're gonna burn you alive to save our apples." How you like them?
You like them? Okay, yeah. So I mean, pretty much that's what happens. So this officer gets called out to this remote island to investigate a missing girl, and he's kind of investigating the girl the whole time, and then he starts to believe that. Well, he sees some of the belief system of the people on this island. It's very culty and very weird, and so he starts to think that they have used this girl already for a human sacrifice, or might be using her for a human sacrifice, something along those lines. Mm-hmm. And then they kind of pull the rug out from under you at the end with, again, a huge exposition dump, courtesy of Christopher Lee.
Let's go.
Comic book villain monologuing at the end, telling us all about his, masterful plan.
Absolutely.
And then, yeah, they put him in a giant Wicker Man and set the thing on fire.
Oh, that pig didn't do a daggone thing.
Well, I mean, it's the
I get
animal
it.
sacrifice
Yeah,
is part
fine.
of it too.
It's fine.
Yeah. So that's pretty much what happened. What do we think about the way the movie looked?
Oh, I think I'm a big. I try to view it as though hey, when it's made is when it's made, and it can't fight that. We can't judge the past on what they had. George Lucas would argue, but hey, you got what you got, and you make it fit. And I still feel like if I saw this movie in 1973 or 79, I still feel like it would look outdated. Am I wrong in that?
Well, I just think that it reminded me a lot of the Giallo movies that we've seen, and we did an episode where we watched one. It was our 70s episode, and I think maybe as an American audience, we're not quite as used to 70s European cinema.
I agree.
I
Completely agree.
think that what I'm seeing is a lot of similarities in all those movies, and it's stuff that's cheesy or shocking to us, but to them is probably totally normal.
Yeah.
Looked like early Doctor Who, so I was good.
There you
There
go.
you go. Yep. Yeah, I would say that my one true. You watch a couple early UK thing. I'm trying to think. Netflix has a couple, but really, where I get my exposure would be Monty Python,
Right.
I guess.
Yep.
But the problem is with that is I tie these
Right.
two things
Right.
in. And it's like, oh yeah, I've seen this in a Monty Python skit, and I start laughing at really
Monty
bad
Python
times.
when they do that, like zoom in on the face, and he goes, "What?" Like it's supposed to be funny.
Yep.
And this movie, they do it. It was supposed to be serious, and Monty Python was parodying it, making it funny. But to us, it's just funny.
It's just funny.
Did you not see the small child with the coconuts underneath the horse?
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. So that is kind of difficult. The sound of this movie may have been the most terrifying part.
Yeah.
So they recorded a bunch of original music for this that is all real creepy, culty sounding, and like at times it's like real goofy and you're laughing at it, but then like when there's like 30 kids singing it, and they seem really bought into it. It's not really that funny anymore.
Yeah.
And yeah, it hits in a way that's almost a musical,
Yeah.
which was really unexpected.
No, there are times when it is a musical. I would argue. I mean, we have we are going to stop the storyline and we are going to expand it with a song, aka musical. And Willow's dance is part of that
Expression
musical
through movement.
Yes. Yes. What's interesting though is they didn't really stick with that. Like we saw a lot of that at the beginning, and then it's like, hey, we're running out of time. Let's speed this along.
And then they hit it at the end, huh?
Yeah, that's true.
Oh,
Yeah,
man.
that's a good point. But I think, yeah, they're one thing that I really love about this era of TV show or movie is that it's almost like listening to like a radio show where you get the sounds that they want you to hear.
Right.
If that makes sense. Like it's exaggerated. I don't know what it's called, but they're using sound effects and they dub it over their live shot, or they have two separate feeds and they interpose it, but it's boosted big time.
Yeah.
So it's like, hey, we want you to hear this. So
Yeah, they're not operating with 7.1 Dolby Digital surround and like hiding things. They're like literally smashing a plate and like expecting you to hear it.
Yep. And they'll mute. So there's one scene where like the lady clearly says a word, but she wasn't supposed to say it, so they just muted it. And you can tell that she says it.
Yeah.
You can tell by her voice that she doesn't just mouth it, but she says it and it's muted. And it's a weird shot. And I would still tie that into
creepy.
To sound is like she said my eyes say it, she says it. All of my senses say that she says it. There's no sound. It's weird. It's a creepy shot.
Yeah.
It's fast and it blows right by. But I think those kinds of things make these movies. And they really let we see a story where an entire village is telling one individual, they're depicting every movement he makes, and that's what this cinema does. It depicts what you're going to find emotion in. Whereas in modern movies, there's so much sound, there's so much visual that sometimes what you pick up on, I don't pick up on, and they really don't give that flexibility in these kinds of movies. So.
Yeah. Before I get into the next question, I just wanted to bring up one thing just about the plot, because I guess this kind of ties into just the what happened. So I didn't expect. Obviously, I've never seen this movie before. I didn't expect there to be kind of this twist ending, and I can make the argument that maybe it wasn't handled or written in a super creative, interesting way. It just kind of happened. But it got me thinking of another movie that's not necessarily a cult movie, but another movie that really centers around one person going to an island and trying to figure out what's going on, and then kind of at the end realizing that they're the victim. And I was like, I don't know if it was inspired, but like, at least whoever wrote Shutter Island clearly saw this movie.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Coming to America.
Coming to America. I thought you were talking about Star Wars. With all that weird alien titty juice.
Those are planets. Islands.
This movie is very similar to Shutter Island.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously slightly different backdrop, slightly different situation, but like the main story arc is exactly the same. So yeah, I just thought that was really interesting. Was this movie scary?
It's creepy.
I would say when trying to stand it up against modern horror, no. But I think you're dead on, Alex. I think there are creepy shots. There's the first one in particular that comes to mind is like the first scene where we see these weird animal masks, which the new Pet Sematary straight rips. I mean,
yeah. And I didn't know that.
I think they may be the same masks. Like, I could be wrong. Could
Right.
be wrong, but I think they went and they found a warehouse and they found the exact same mask. It's creepy. There are creepy shots. There are these weird, like, sex ritual scenes that are like, yeah, that's not right. That's weird. There are, I mean, even the final scene where they're swaying and dancing and doing their weird hippie cult stuff.
I think it was flossing. They were doing the original UK cult floss.
I think that's what it was. I think
Get out of the way,
that's what
ninja.
Yep. And it's still like, it's just not right. Like and I think part of that is just them not being in touch with like reality, not really understanding the full weight of their actions, whatever it may be. But there are creepy aspects. I would not call it scary.
Yeah, I think that's how it was for me too. I just think it was very unsettling, and I think that it just had really, really good peace moments that made me really uncomfortable. I mean, that last scene made me uncomfortable, like watching him kind of making peace with his god and, like, you know, also being burned alive, and then like they're just like, you know, singing and having a grand old time, like they're watching fireworks at the 4th of July or something. Like it's messed up.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely.
All right. What was for best scare? Obviously, I wouldn't say there's really any like jump scare moments. Maybe one or two, but you know, what do you guys think was the scariest moment of the movie?
So mine's gonna be super hokey. There's this scene. It's almost like a montage scene where he's searching the town for this dead girl.
Yep.
And he's convinced that he's just going to open every door, walk through every doorway, every opening, and eventually he's gonna find her. Mm-hmm. And it's so fast. But he opens this wardrobe, and we all were like, "Whoa!" Because it stops you. He opens this wardrobe, and a dead girl, falls out, and she hits the ground. I mean, and it looks like her.
Yeah.
And you're like, "That's her? What?" Like it blindsides you. It's just, it reminds me of a funniest home movies like montage, and then like right in the middle of it, the music stops. She hits the ground, and you're like, "What? He found her? Like that's weird."
Yep.
And then she gets up, not her, poser.
Yeah. Laughs at him. And
Laughs
runs
at
away.
him. Oh my god.
Oh yeah, that was mine too. That was 100%. I was gonna say.
So stupid, but it was a great shot. It was a
good.
great scene. Absolutely.
It wasn't the baker, but like 2 scenes before that, baking like a human body kind of thing inside of like a metal coffin. Like props to that guy for making a whole new pastry.
I want to know, is it done in the middle? Because
I don't know, man. That would have to be like some low temps, long cooking.
Yep. Hey, without burning all your edges.
That
Getting
special
all crispy.
coffin tool.
All right. So best kill.
Oh. I'm gonna go because I think if somebody doesn't take the low fruit, I'll assume somebody else is gonna take the low fruit.
Sure.
I'm gonna go with the beheading at the sacrificial Russian roulette line, which is actually, spoiler, not a real kill.
Yep.
It shocked me.
I totally thought it was.
It's another shocking scene. So, we're in post, so we get spoilers, and everybody in this little village, whatever it is, they have to march through this like weird
Star of David made out of swords.
guillotine.
Yeah.
And it's by chance. Everybody has to go through it. And it seems like, so if you listen to our pre-show, something that you would see out of the path, like out of any cult movie show, but these are rituals. These aren't real things. And then, boom, we lose a head. And it just stunned me.
Yeah.
So that would be mine. And again, spoilers, it's not real.
Yeah.
It's kind of a prop head, and the little
It's like
girl,
part of her costume.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She pops out, and it seems like some people seem to know it was planned.
Right.
Our main character does not know that, and the whole time I'm thinking, oh, they've planned it. They're killing him. and that's not the case.
Yeah.
It was good. It's a good shot.
I think your low-hanging fruit is just obviously Neil Howie being burned inside the Wicker Man,
Absolutely.
obviously, and all the poor animals that were in there as well. I actually wanted to back up to Scare one more time because I guess mine actually is probably Lord Summerisle whenever he's dressed as the man-woman, which is what not purposefully being insensitive. That's literally what they call him.
Yeah.
And just again, his just sold out performance to this crazy cult leader role was just terrifying.
Yeah.
And he's prancing through the streets and doing this weird ceremonial dance, and also at the same time, like, angrily coaching the people who aren't doing it right, like, to step up their game. Like, it's just weird and freaky.
Yeah. Weird.
Anything else on kills there, Alex?
Probably just at near the beginning where the policeman sort of kills that whole vibe in the like the whole town's just
great time.
Whole town just getting down, talking about the hot barmaid, and then all of a sudden he's just like slamming his thing. He's like, "I'm going to bed." Okay, cool, bye.
Wait, what? He's slamming his thing?
Yeah,
just-
he's
yeah,
like
you know.
slammed it. I don't know what he was hitting.
Phrasing. I think it was an ashtray.
Yeah,
Okay.
All right, let's get into our review. Alex, hit us with a thumbs up, hit us with a thumbs down, and then hit us with your Nuggets rating.
I'd say thumbs up. I'd probably spend $3, so 30 nuggets.
Yep, you got it.
Did the conversion right?
Yep.
Yeah. You trying to justify your answer here, or you just going for it? You're just laying it out there and waiting for it.
It was a good, creepy movie. Yeah, I don't know. It was just good. It was better than the other Wicker Man, that's for sure.
Have you seen the remake?
Yeah, with Nicolas Cage,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, I was very disappointed with the lack of bees in this one, though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
There are bees in the first one, huh? Or in
Yeah.
this remake, huh?
Yeah.
Interesting. All right. Well, you know what? It's gonna get a thumbs up from me too. I don't think this is the goriest movie I've ever seen or the scariest movie I've ever seen, but it definitely has some unsettling aspects, and I think that I feel like it was well worth my time as someone who, you know, likes scary movies to spend some time with it, even if it is a little dated, and you know, trying to put yourself in the headspace too of like, okay, well, what, you know, in a pre The Void world, like when there's not a lot of movies about cults being made, you know, kind of what would be scary about it. And yeah, so yeah, thumbs up for me too. I'm gonna say 40 nuggies. I mean, I'm right there with you.
I love to be the contrarian. I love to challenge. I'm still gonna give it a thumbs up.
Yeah.
I'm a little surprised that it's a unanimous vote. I think you need to be aware of what you're getting into.
Yeah.
I think if you listen to the pre-show and you write down the titles we gave you, and then you jump to this, the only one that seems to fit is Rosemary's Baby.
Yeah.
And so you just need to be careful. I mean, anything in this realm, there's a lot of Lovecraftian in this subgenre. And you could argue that this could have been inspired by, but it doesn't necessarily have a lot of the, a lot of the elements. And so I think you just need to be aware of what you're going into.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm going to give it less nuggies. I'm going to say 10 to 20. I mean, if you can go to your local rental shop, if you can find this on a streaming service that you already have, definitely go for it. Because we do see this. We see this on lists all the time. We see this as a classic, as kind of the father of the cult film.
Yep.
But I think it's just very different. I mean, when your best scare is like a fake scare.
Yeah.
You know, like it's just a lot of the movie didn't feel...
It's a different style of filmmaking than, obviously modern horror and what we recognize as horror is really influenced by what we see happen in the 80s, and this doesn't really have any of those elements.
Exactly. And so it's going to feel different. And even the soundtrack, I mean, going back to that sound portion, there's one point where we all looked at each other and we were laughing because it felt like a late
weird.
70s, early 80s, like police chase soundtrack.
Yeah,
where it was just like,
what it was.
what is happening? Because it didn't feel like horror, but that's the exact same conversation we had about those Giallo movies, where it's like there are moments of this that don't fit to us,
Right?
And I'm not saying it doesn't fit. I'm not saying it's not right. To my film experience, it's new and it feels out of place, but definitely worth a watch. I mean, and I said this before, I'll say it again. Anything with Christopher Lee is worth a view. And I would say of all the characters in this film, oh my, he goes for it and he does it. Sometimes you just get those roles where people are 100% and he went for it. So yeah, see it, just know what you're getting into.
All right, so we want to get to our contest winner for this week. So today, I was just spur of the moment. I had sort of a little bit of downtime on my work day, and I was like, hey, I'm just going to make this real fast. And I just threw together 5 different images from cult movies that I like, and just, said, hey, whoever the first one is to name all 5 of these, we'll give you a special shout out on the podcast tonight. And shockingly, I wasn't trying to make it really hard, but I just didn't really expect anyone to jump on it super fast and like actually know them all. And so actually a buddy of mine named Ryan went right away and he got them all dead on. He was just missing one in the middle, and it was from The Invitation. He had made a guess that wasn't right. And then very shortly after did our winner pull through and got all 5 of them right. And like, I wasn't trying to like say that I'm like really smart and I know all these really, obscure movies or something. I just didn't expect anybody to jump on it that quick. So, especially since I just had the idea this afternoon.
Definitely.
So yeah, our winner is VHS_Wookie.
Whoa!
VHS Wookie on Instagram. You can check him out. He has actually a really, really cool feed. So I actually got to talk to this guy a little bit just on DM because we live in Indiana and we don't meet a lot of people in like the horror Instagram podcast community that are from Indiana. Like that's kind of weird. It's not super common. We have a lot of Instagram people we talk to in East Coast, West Coast, and just not a lot of people here in the Midwest. But I just found this guy. He actually, so I ordered a The Stuff container from the movie The Stuff, and I saw like he was tagged as being someone who ordered one as well from this dude. And so I was looking at his feed. I was like, man, this guy's just a collector, and he like takes pictures of the cool stuff he collects. Like that's pretty much his whole feed, and like it's pretty cool. And then I was like, holy shit, this dude's in Indiana. Like, that's really cool. So like I DM'd him and I was like, hey, horror Hoosiers, like unite. And so he's a really chill dude, and we had a good conversation. He actually hasn't been collecting horror stuff for that long, and he already has some really cool shit. So yeah, just check out his Instagram feed. He's got some cool stuff. He has a bunch of Asian VHS releases of Nightmare on Elm Street, and like that cover art is just freaking amazing. Like, oh god, sweet. Just look at his Instagram just for that. Like, it's freaking awesome. So yeah, VHS Wookie, congratulations. I contacted him and said, hey, is there anything special you'd like us to say? Just for your shout out, and he gave me a list of names that he would like to thank for his wonderful horror knowledge, and I'm just gonna pass this one over to Cody.
I'd be happy to. So we have some lovely individuals here. Clearly he went to great lengths to really go to the depths of his heart and maybe elsewhere. So he would like to thank Hugh Jass, Jenna Teoya, my guess girlfriend, maybe wife, Mike Hunt, and his grandpa BJ. God, Cobbledick. Couldn't.
What was that last one we did?
Yeah. Grandpa. Good day. Grandpa BJ Cobbledick.
All right.
So,
Old man Cobbledick from,
Yep.
from down on Maine.
I think it's the one and the same. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, I think those sound like pleasant people, and if you don't have those people in your life, make sure to go find some.
Oh yeah, awesome folks. All right, guys, well that does it for us. Wicker Man gets a thumbs up and the official Eek seal of quality. So yeah, thank you so much for listening.
This has been a production of Eek Channel. We make spooky stuff for people like you. You can discover more content like this at eekchannel.com or find us on Instagram, Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, all the places. And don't be shy, we like making new friends. Thank you for tuning in and stay eeky out there.